Most n8n tutorials teach you the wrong things first. Form submission, Google Sheets, email, cool. But when's the last time you actually use that? I use n8n almost every day, not for lead capture, but for content. I wake up with ideas already in my database, scripts outlined, posts scheduled. That's what n8n is actually for, automating the work you already do, not to make some fake business scenario. So today I'm going to show you how to actually get started, and we're going to be building something you'll actually use. So here's what we're covering. You can see the outline here. What is n8n, the terms, how to set it up, and how to build your first workflow that's actually useful. I'm going to show you some real examples of workflows that I've built and that I actually use. And then finally, templates and where to go next with n8n. Let's just start off with the first one. What makes n8n special is the agents feature. So you can add AI agents, which we'll cover, and that is truly the bread and butter. Maybe about a year ago, that wasn't that common. To actually use AI agents was hard. You probably had to use like a terminal. It wasn't something that was widely available, and n8n made that possible. So I like to think of it like Zapier, but more powerful, and it can be free, but most of the time it's going to be paid to some extent. If you self-host, it can be up to $4 to $5 a month. If you do pay the monthly, which is still relatively cheap for the ROI you get, it's $24 a month, and you get enough executions, you get unlimited workflows, and you can always check their website. But that's really how I think about n8n, just an automation tool that makes everything easier, and it can help you unlock more with AI. So let's start off with some n8n terminology. This is a new canvas. This is how any n8n workflow will look like. And the way I like to think of a workflow is just a few sequential steps. So let's just say you have a trigger. Let's say you have an AI agent, and I'm not going to connect it and do anything with it, but I just want to show you the final step. And let's just say it just dumps everything into Airtable. And so this in itself is a workflow. You would just name it. These icons here are what you call nodes. And a trigger is this right here. It sounds pretty self-explanatory, but it's whatever triggers the workflow to start. You have many ways to start it. You can trigger it manually. You can add a schedule trigger, or you can execute it within another workflow. You can use a webhook. There's different ways to do it. Most of the ones you'll use are going to be the manual, which is you have here. You can manually execute it, because there are going to be workflows that you don't want to run autonomously. You just want to run when you want to run them. Right? There's workflows that you may want to trigger with a chat. There's that feature as well. Maybe you just want it to run automatically at a set schedule, and that's when the schedule trigger comes into play. So then credentials is another part that's important with n8n. As you can see here, you have a lot of errors because I just didn't even choose anything. But the first time you set up your workflow, you're going to get these two because you're going to need to authenticate. So once you authenticate once, n8n saves your information. But all you need to understand is your authentication credentials are saved, and so you don't have to re-enter them every single time. And then the execution is it's just how it sounds. It's when you run the workflow. These are the most common terms that I can think of, but those are going to be the main ones. I'm sure there's many more, but these are the ones that you're going to really interact with frequently. Here, the next step is, how do you get started, right? I already have mine set up, but if you're just starting from scratch, what I would recommend if you're a beginner is go to n8n.io, hit get started, and then sign up. Sign up for the 14-day free trial, and you're pretty much good. Now, option 2 is if you're more technical, but if you're watching this video, odds are you're probably learning n8n for the first time. You haven't set it up. You're thinking about it. So I would just stick with option 1. But just know that there is another option further down the road, and this is what I would recommend, is to do both. Do the free trial, pay for it for a few months. Just spend more time learning n8n versus trying to configuring it. Trust me, you're going to save a lot of headaches. Self-hosting isn't as glamorous as they make it seem. It has its quirks. It's definitely a good option, but it has its quirks, and I wouldn't recommend it as a new user. So as option 2, once you've used n8n for a few months, just self-host. And a cool hosting platform that I recommend is Hostinger. I would just start with this one. You pay annually, and you pay $60, and it comes out to $5 a month. Now, the cool part with this is that it does work. This is enough for most people, but I'm using this one. If you notice a little sluggishness, or you're noticing that your workflows aren't executed on time, basically it's going to be a resource issue. That's pretty much it. To set it up, there's tutorials out there, but those are mainly the two options. That's where we're going to go next, is building our first workflow. So you can follow along if you're doing this for the first time, or you can just do it afterward. But just know that you need to set up an n8n instance first. Hit create new workflow, and then we're going to start building. All right, so now we're going to get to the fun part, right? You want to start n8n, it's probably because you just want to build an automation to help you out. It's just like that saying goes. You basically spend double the time planning versus building. And if you do that, you'll save yourself a lot of headaches. let's say you were to just build off the bat, you may make mistakes, you may go too complex, you may not make it complex enough. Basically, the goal is if you do enough planning, the building becomes easier. And that's a step number one. If you don't have a process to capture your own processes, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a business, you may or may not have SOPs. These are just documents that document your steps to do certain tasks. And a great tool to capture your SOPs, standard operating procedures, is a notebook LM. You can just create a notebook, for example, you can call it business, learning, whatever, dump resources here. You can drop YouTube links, you can drop files, transcripts, and you create this place where even memos, you can use something like Voice Inc. and just talk it out. Dump all these different processes and you can just organize however you want. These folders could be called, I don't know, content creation, it could be called marketing, whatever it makes sense for you. Dump them all in there and then you can ask Gemini to create procedures for you. And then you can flesh them out and then figure out where you can automate, where n8n comes into play. And for that, I like to use something like Excalidraw. It's a blank canvas. You can just document steps. The point is you will just create it here. And once you map out the workflow here, it becomes easier to build. All right, so as we build something, let's actually put this to the test. Let's go to Excalidraw. Let's start building something. And I'm thinking of building like an RSS feed because that's multi-purpose. What I'm thinking is we're going to have a manual trigger first, and then we can always change it later to something different. We're going to pull from the RSS feed. We're going to have AI analyze this for us, and then once it analyzes, it shoots us an email. So this is very simple, but it's still very helpful, especially for workflows that are more complex. In this case, it still helps you think about it because you may want some other conditions, and usually you catch the errors here quicker versus spending a lot of time building the nodes, configuring them, and then realizing, oh, I don't need them, or oh, this is too complex. If this was a more complex workflow, I'll have this, and then I'll maybe write some notes on the side to just understand it. But it looks like we're good to go. It's going to have 4 nodes, and just remember how this looks, and then remember how it's going to look on n8n. It's going to be very similar, if not identical. And so in this case, let's just start off. We're going to go open n8n. We're going to have a manual node or a manual trigger. And now we are going to put the RSS feed. So this is the RSS feed. One thing I like to do is rename them because you want to make sure you actually understand what it does. Okay, and then I think we had the AI agent, and then I'm going to have the Gmail node, and that's pretty much it. So let's clear out these errors. First, I'm going to go to Perplexity, and let me see. Find me RSS working feeds for AI tech blogs. Okay, let's just say we're going to take the Google AI blog. Let's see if it works. All right, so go here, paste it. Cool, we got a hit. So we got 25 items. We don't want to feed too much stuff. Some of these items may not even make sense. We want to filter. And so what this is going to do, instead of, let's say you had multiple RSS feeds, that could be potentially hundreds of data points you're going to feed to AI. And that can get expensive pretty quick. And is also inefficient. Think about it. Why would you want to feed it stuff that you don't need? We're going to start a new Claude session. Hey, Claude, I'm building an n8n workflow. I need the JavaScript code logic that filters through the RSS feed, basically by keywords that are relevant to my space. I care about AI and stuff that is beginner friendly, and I want to filter out obvious noise. So then by the time the AI agent gets it, it only gets the top 10 articles. Let's see what AI comes up with. I just want to give an idea of, I don't even need it to read the whole data. I just need it to get an idea of what the data set looks like. So let's see what it comes up with. All right, let's paste this and let's see how it works. All right, so notice that from all these 25, it came down to 2. I would loop back because I don't know this data set too well, but to your case, this may be accurate. Or let's just say you were scraping a blog, like in this case, but you knew the blog, you knew the type of content. So you would just play around making sure that the filter is not too strict or too restrictive, just the right spot. Because all it's supposed to do is just take off the workload, removing obvious bad articles so the AI doesn't analyze it. You have 2 articles, right? Now we're going to feed it to the AI agent. So you're going to change this to defined. You're going to add a system message. And now you're going to ask Cloud Code. What I usually like to do to give it a picture, you could just copy and paste the code logic, but I'm going to paste this. Hey, Claude, this is my workflow. Now I'm going to build my AI agent. Give me a user and system message. And what I want this agent to do is to read the summaries coming in from the blog post or from the RSS feed, and then give me a nice summary that's 250 words or so long and gives me just something to think about, like next steps in terms of what I can do to share with my audience. or actually just tie it back to me as a solopreneur, why it matters to me, and if there's any action items that I should be doing as a takeaway. So I'm going to press enter, and I didn't catch it. That one's fine. While that loads, I'm going to then choose the chat model. Personally, I like to use OpenRouter. They have OpenAI, you have Anthropic. You could use them directly. It's not a problem, but in terms of cost, I just recommend using OpenRouter because it keeps everything kind of bundled in, all the models you use. So for this one, I think I'm going to use Chat for Mini and just see how it works. It's cheaper, and it may just do what I needed to do. Now I'm going to go check back with Claude. So here's the system message. This is a prompting framework, just good prompting practices. I'm going to feed it to Claude just to make sure it checks itself. Please double check that your system and user message are compliant with these best practices. You don't have to use all of them, but just double check that we are clear so that the agent is prepared to give me the best quality output. Perfect, no, but I've noticed that sometimes when I give it a framework, a certain steps to process is going to be more thorough. And I got this with a combination of watching videos and learning, also going to documentation sources like Claude and ChatGPT, just to understand better prompting practices. So in this case, it seems like it's making some changes. So you can see here are some gaps I found. So this is the difference versus just spitballing it. And so let's copy this. Here's a user message and the system message. I'm going to try to cheat a little bit. Instead of, because see how it has two items, it's going to loop twice. It's going to run the agent one. It's going to loop and analyze each one. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to combine into a single output. Please modify this so it takes both outputs. Basically, it takes any number of articles and just combines it into a single output so the AI can just read it at once. Now, there's certain things I didn't use. I could have used a tool. This is not necessary every single time, but you could use it if you want the AI agent, for example, look at your database for something or memory as well. Let me ask, please give me the code node logic to clean up this data. This is the output from AI. So now let's just see what Claude comes up with. And the reason I do this, there's two ways to do it. You could have this require specific output, and it'll add as something it calls output parser, and it just cleans up the data. So basically, AI can just give you random data every single time. So what that does, it forces it to use a strict output. I'm going to use a code node. It's a little more reliable in my opinion, but honestly, this is just whatever you want to do. Now let's shoot the email. So let's say I'm running a weekly. And so you see how that changes. So every time the email is sent out, and then what we're going to do here, we're going to change it to expression. And we're going to open this up. We're going to add it here. And then here you get a preview of how it looks. So it's actually pretty cool. So another hack is, not even a hack, but another tip is you press P. That way you don't need to rerun them. But in this case, we're good. And now we're going to shoot the email. And so this is terrible. So it's there. So the good news is it works, but it looks crap. So let's see if we can figure it out. Ask AI. And so what I'm hoping the AI does here just gives me the HTML format. Mind you, I know basics of HTML, but I'm not going to sit there and manually type it. So AI is going to figure it out. It's going to give us the code we need, hopefully making it look nice, spaced out, and just visually better than whatever we had right now. And so now I'm going to run it here. And now I'm going to shoot the email again. And now let's check. There it is. Pretty cool. It looks like a professional email to me. Good enough. So it's summarizing the news. You can use this for many ways. You can send it a daily AI briefing or daily competitor briefing. Maybe you're scraping Reddit or you just want to stay on top of certain news. So these are just some of the use cases that you can build it from. And you will get this email for fairly cheap. It's not just upgrading the model, but if you were to have a more concrete use case than just summarizing an action item, it gets pretty wild. So this is just a tiny glimpse of the cool part. And you saw that we built it fairly quick. If you're new to n8n, it would take you a little bit longer. But it took maybe 10 minutes to build, if not less. But it'll probably take someone new maybe anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes, and you'll be solid. The most painful part is setting up the nodes and authenticating for like Gmail, OpenRouter, or whatever. If you use directly OpenAI, that's pretty much a workflow in a nutshell. Now, what you saw was a basic example of an n8n workflow. This one is the one that I use pretty much weekly, if not a few times a week. And this is my repurposing workflow. And what I do is basically when I have a script for a short video or even a long video, I trigger via my Notion dashboard. So I change the status to, let's say, ready. It checks the filter, and if it's ready, it proceeds on. It grabs basically all the stuff from Notion. So in this case, we just care about the outline. So in this case, a script. And then basically it feeds it to this first AI agent that is just generating captions for Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube description, all in one. And the cool part is this has a switch node, which is just a fancy way of saying, hey, which options are checked? Is it YouTube, LinkedIn, X? Is it all three? So now it has this switch. It's triggered by my content hub. So let's say I have these articles here, right? Or these ideas. And let's say I change the status to context ready. It's going to look inside this page and it's going to look for the script or the outline. And this agent runs, generates the assets, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, spits them out, and then these other workflows kick in if they need to, depending on the condition. So if I select all 5, all these agents run. So just depending on what I select, the right agents will run. And so that's pretty much it. Once all agents run, they spit out their output, whether it's an X tweet, a LinkedIn post, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube descriptions. We combine all that and basically just organize it here. And then just change the status and then just output it. Here, all we need to see is this goes from context ready to draft generated. And then everything is added here like this. So you see YouTube headline, script, everything that needs to be added gets added here. And then I just go in here manually, and once it's done, I just review it, make tweaks, edit the LinkedIn post, the X tweet, any description, stuff that I just don't like, I just modify, and we're good to go. So in terms of getting started, we built a workflow. You saw what I built, and your head may be spinning, you may be confused, but if you can build that first workflow, that's all you need is those small wins. And then another tip that I'll recommend is don't start from scratch when you don't need to. Or just go here in the template section from n8n. It's free. You can just look at different use cases. Let's just type in social media and we'll see some free workflows. None of these are probably not going to be anything you would use off the bat. But look at here. You can look at these workflows. You can see this is schedule trigger, AI agent. You can see it has a model. Remember that structured output parser to organize the output. And so you can start seeing how other people build it. There's multiple ways to build something. And you can see here AI is analyzing an image. AI is generating hashtags, it's combining them, and then outputting it to LinkedIn. You can just use it for free. So this is why I like n8n, because it's really easy to just move things. This is what I mean by portable. And so you can just test it. But that's how it looks like for you until you authenticate. Here's another just side tip. I wouldn't post directly for this. I would just use a scheduler like Blotato or whatever your choice. But posting directly with n8n is just going to give you bad results. In terms of the next steps is just, like I said, the most important step is going to be to document your personal workflows and figure out what needs automation. And from there, start prioritizing. And you can feed this to AI, by the way. You can do it directly on NotebookLM once you feed all your workflows, and then just start prioritizing what needs to be worked on first and what specific parts of a specific process. Because a single process, you can have multiple automations. And then that's how I'll do it. I'll just start automating one by one, once a month or once every few weeks, whatever works for your schedule. It's not so much about just spending most of your time automating, because you can get lost in rabbit holes building complex workflows. So just to recap, you already know what n8n is. Hopefully you have a better idea that it's much more than an automation tool. It can be a personal workflow enhancer. It's almost like hiring like a mini employee, depending on the workflow you build. It can definitely almost feel like that. It's not as agentic as something like Claude Code, but it definitely is agentic in many cases when you use the AI agent node. And we built our first workflow. You saw how easy it was. In 10 to 15 minutes, we built something that scrapes RSS feeds, organizes it, has AI analyze, summarize, and then shoot us an email afterward. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know what you want me to automate next or what you want to see. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. It just lets me know that you want me to create more content like this. But hopefully this really inspires you to avoid many of the mistakes that I made when I was first starting n8n, and just to start building, because that's the biggest roadblock. It took me like 5 tries to get with n8n, no matter which tutorial I saw. Hopefully this one at least gets you one step closer to building and deciding to get started, because once you get started, you can build almost anything, which is crazy.